Hello and welcome. My name's Hannah from To The Being Mindful Movement. Get yourself into some really comfy, cozy clothes and see if you can find somewhere relatively cushioned to work with on the floor. So if you've got some kind of mat, go ahead and roll that out. Perhaps you're on carpet or a rug. And if it is needed, you could even gather a couple of cushions. Maybe you'd like to even start with a pillow under the back of your head. You're really welcome to do that as we start nestling into our first pose of simply lying down. Take your time wriggling in to whatever feels a place of stability and comfort to begin with. So don't worry if you're still doing your little shuffles here, arranging your clothes, hair, or just creating that space that you need around you. And once you do find yourself in some kind of stillness, let's go ahead and inhale through the nose and just take a real easy, gentle sigh through the mouth. You're welcome to add that kind of breath at any point that feels necessary to reconnect to the now, if it's useful. Perhaps you could think of me just as a guide today. I'll be making several suggestions about how you might like to move your body. You're welcome to pause somewhere that feels more appropriate for your body. So don't feel that you have to match everything I say or what you see perhaps on the screen. Remember that this is your practice today. And then from here, when you feel like you're ready to take your first move, we're going to place soles of feet onto the earth. And once you've done that, again, let's just check in with the width of the feet, just like in that first practice of this shape. We want the feet at hip width, knees on top of the heels there. We want this to be a solid foundation, so in a moment we'll be rolling the hips up and we want to avoid the knees widening or narrowing too much. Could we try to have a sense of focus of solid legs? This time, could you bring your palms to face down, reaching your fingertips towards your heels? They do not have to touch. And then have a conscious drawing in and under of the shoulder blades. So I press the back of my head into the earth and tuck shoulder blades in. Now, advice here is to definitely not have anything underneath the back of your head. So if you have a pillow there, please do remove it before you attempt to add this movement in. We'll be rolling up into a bridge shape pose. So start to press firmly into all four corners of your feet and then start by drawing the pubic bone towards the navel. Remember that exaggerated curve of the spine we were doing in our tilts of the pelvis? We want to draw pubic bone towards the navel and then press and roll our way up. Once you get about halfway, maybe there's a little more room to draw the shoulder blades in. If not, don't worry, you pause where you can. Hold. Could you lift the hips a little higher? We're going to roll back down again and we'll do this 2 more times. So one vertebrae at a time rolls down, so it's a reverse rolling until the buttocks, the sit bones, start to connect down. And then again, tilt the pubic bone towards the navel, drawing that belly button in gently as you raise those hips. Press down with your hands or the fists. And then slowly roll down. The next one, if it's possible, we're going to hold for 3 breaths. Now, if you do have a yoga mat, something else you might try is grabbing onto the edge of that mat and actually pull out. For some of us, that gives us that little extra oomph just to be able to stabilize. So I'm going to do that with you. Tuck those pubic bone towards the navel, or one pubic bone that you have, not those, and roll your way up. This time, could you pause? Maybe you've got 3 breaths in you to pause here. 2 and 1, and then gently roll your way back down, finding slow connection of back and earth. Let's go ahead and pause. This time we're pausing just for a short period of time, because the next movement can be a wonderful release for that pose that we were just doing, the bridge there. So already bringing the feet back down to the earth, knees bent. Just create a little space with your arms here, and go ahead and drop the knees down towards the right side. Maybe you'd like to move with breath here a little bit. Inhale, lift the knees, and then drop them to the left side. Don't worry if the knees and the thighs are not touching the ground. Just swaying like windscreen wipers through the legs for a few more rounds. The next time that my knees reach towards the right side, I'm going to pause and just let the legs be heavy. If it feels comfortable for the neck, maybe try turning your head towards the left side. If not, keep the head neutral. Remembering that today's practice is not about creating amazingly beautiful shapes. It is all about our connection to physical sensations in the moment, in our body. What can you picture in terms of a sense of shape of your body in your mind's eye in this moment? And then gently draw the knees back up, and we'll shift it to the other side. You don't have to turn the head if it's uncomfortable in any way. Keep the head more centered, otherwise just see what it feels like to turn it. Again, maybe visualizing your body in this zigzag shape. And then slowly bringing yourself back up to center. Let's go ahead and pause. You could think about this moment as a place to just be, instead of always doing. How does it feel to just be and give yourself permission to be here? Slowly, you're going to bring your feet towards the ground. When you're ready, knees bent. And we'll start by lifting the right leg upwards. Now, we're going to attempt to reach along that right leg, if we can, anywhere at all. And it might be that the leg is very bent or a little bent. Perhaps you're just scooting right up behind the back of that knee. Just attempt to do what you can by raising that right foot towards the ceiling. And then don't worry about what you're seeing on screen. I am a yoga teacher. I have a certain amount of movement ability. But if it's possible, your hands will rise higher. And if it's feeling like you want to, you could even lift your head towards that leg in the sky. So if that's feeling too much, if you've given it a go and you're trying this out and you've decided, ooh, that's not for me, just slowly rest your head, your shoulders back down. And perhaps we no longer need to fully reach towards the foot or the heel. I'm going to come back to a midpoint, lowering head and shoulders, pausing with my breath, and then lowering that leg. Take a breath between the two sides, and then we'll swap it over. So again, wherever you can take hold of the back of that left leg, maybe starting off here with head and shoulders to the ground. Maybe you're exploring, where can my hands go on that leg? If you are going to do this video again and you feel like you need a little extra help in the future, you could always grab a cord of a dressing gown or some sort of yoga strap and bring it over the foot to help aid you. But we're not actually trying to go into the deepest stretch possible here. It really is a place for us to be gentle with our body and be more with the exploration of sensation. I've lifted the head for a few breaths, and now I'm going to lower it. You might already have done so. And then slowly lowering that foot. Again, let's come to pause. A few moments to rebound. Perhaps that particular pose brought up quite a bit of sensation for you. Maybe you've noticed quite a lot of resistance in the body. Perhaps that brought up certain visualizations or thoughts. And in our mindful way, we send a message of love and kindness and honor where we're at in our practice of movement in this moment. This is how it is, and that's okay. When you're ready to move again, we're going to lie on our side. So don't worry about which side you start with. Maybe you're just facing towards me. And maybe we'll start with the legs a little bit bent here. If you can, you'll actually have both legs straight, but that can be a little bit more tricky for balance. So just see how you go. I'm going to extend the top leg, and I've supported like a tripod with my bottom arm here. You could also use the other hand to support. We're going to start to lift and lower that top leg. So try to avoid kind of collapsing in and looking towards the foot. See if you can shine the heart forwards, and then start to activate a little bit through the foot by flexing as you lift and lower. So you could do this in your own time. Maybe both legs are straight if you feel like you can. And it might be that you're playing around with the bottom leg bent and the bottom leg straight just to get really stable there. So I like to think about lifting as I inhale, lower as I exhale. You might take a little breather between a lift and a lower. I'll take two more, perhaps you're still with me. And on this last one, I'm actually going to pause. Perhaps you're with me, perhaps you're not. We're using strength to hold and then soften. So you might lay onto your back as you pause. I'm going to shuffle around to the other side so that I'm still facing the screen, but we'll set up pretty quickly to go through to the second side. So a little tripod with the underarm. Again, maybe supporting with that top arm. Perhaps knees bent will be helpful. It could be that you have the knees bent as you do this, top leg straight as you do this. I like to think about having the foot flexed, and I'm not moving too fast here. Perhaps both legs are straight, and Just going in your own rhythmic time. 2 more lifts here. Bit of activation through glutes. All right, there we are. Pausing for 3, for 2, for 1, and lower. And let's go ahead and lay onto our belly this time. So that's actually going to be our time to pause. If you're not a fan of being on your belly for a long period of time, the next pose is on the belly. So you might want to start here, just pausing on your back. But otherwise, just taking an opportunity to pause and rest. Position your head and your arms where you're comfortable. I'm just sort of turning towards the screen so that you can still hear me here. If you have chosen to lie on your belly, maybe you notice the rise and fall of your body as you breathe. The pressing down, the expansion of belly as you breathe. So I'm going to give you a couple of options here to position your head and your arms. We're going to move through the next pose on our bellies, and it could be that you'd like to rest your forehead on your hands here. So I've spread elbows wide. So this might be more comfortable for you to do. If you're comfortable going there, you could rest your chin lightly on the ground or just hover it slightly as you reach the arms back. If you're reaching the arms back, I've dropped the back of the hands to the earth and I'm drawing the shoulder blades together closer and the shoulders away from the ears just for a little bit of strength added here. So I like to glue my legs together to start with. You don't have to, but we're going to see if we can do alternative leg lifts. Again, let's start with moving with breath. So I'm going to lift my right leg and you lift it as high as you can or want to and then lower it down. So you might be joining in here, left leg rising and then lowering. It could be that you need to change where you have your forehead or your arms. I've got my face lifted off the earth again so that you guys can hear me clearly in this moment. And see if you can notice how you have to redistribute your muscles and the engagement of the muscles as you alternate between the two legs. Maybe you notice that you also press down into opposite hand as you lift a leg or sweep it up. All right, next time you come to that first leg, for me it was my right leg, we'll pause for 3, for 2, you don't have to go super high, for 1, and then lower, pause, take at least a full breath, and then we'll go to that second side for 3, for 2, for 1, and let's rest. If you prefer resting on your back, feel free to do that. If you were on your belly and you had your head turned one way, turn your head the opposite way. We've got one more pose to add. Taking another 2 more clear, full breaths as you pause. So we'll reset our body. And again, if possible, this time you have got the arms back behind you. We're going to see if we can lift both legs. We'll do 3 rounds. The last one we'll attempt to hold for 3. The first 2 we'll just lift as we breathe in and we'll lower as we breathe out. So in yoga, we would refer to this as a locust pose. You're actually going to attempt to lift your head and shoulders as well this time. You can keep the back of your hands resting into the earth, or you might reach them up off the earth. This is quite an activated pose. So it might be that only your head and shoulders lift, or maybe only your feet lift. Just see what you can do in our 3 rounds. So take an exhale, just pause, relax. And then as you inhale, inject energy through the fingertips towards the heels. Raise those feet. I like to point toes. It just gives me a sense of activation. And then exhale, soften back down towards the earth. Rest the forehead to the ground. We'll do that 2 more times. 1 more with our breath rhythm. All right, inhale. Lift those toes, lift the head, the fingers, the arms. And exhale, soften down. 1 more time. This time you might be able to pause. When you're ready, inhale, rise up. For 3, maybe you turn the gaze a little forwards. 2, reach those fingertips and toes and soften down. This time I invite you to roll to your back when you are ready. Perhaps it feels good to take an inhale through the nose once you find your way onto your back. And an exhale through the mouth. Here we find ourselves in our final resting pose, often referred to as Shavasana, a time for deep rest, and maybe even a time for gratitude, for accomplishing what you have accomplished today in your movement practice. When you might feel ready to add a little movement, perhaps you'll start by wiggling your fingers and your toes, making that movement greater by wiggling out more and more, perhaps turning it into a stretch before you go ahead and roll to one side, easily making your way upright. Thank you so much for joining today's mindful movement practice, and be well.